The world waits for a once-in-a-lifetime astronomical event.
This was supposed to be the comet of the century, and it's coming right by our doorstep.
But an image from the Hubble Space Telescope reveals this deep space intruder is not what everyone expects.
When we looked at Ison more closely, it had a completely different shape. A center, two wings, almost looked like a spaceship.
Ancient cultures all around the world viewed comets as harbingers of doom. But with the advance of science came understanding, and the terror receded. In 2013, when the eyes of the world turned to the skies for the arrival of Comet Ison, they do so without fear, at least at first.
Comet Ison was promoted to be the biggest, brightest comet in a long time. And so everybody was looking for Comet Ison.
People had high expectations for it in terms of what it would look like and what scientific value it would have.
Since the comet's discovery in September 2012, NASA has tracked the chunk of ice and dust all the way from an outlying region of the solar system known as the Oort cloud.
The Oort cloud is a collection of comets orbiting the sun about 10,000 times as far from the sun as the Earth is.
Out of the millions of comets stuck in distant orbits, something propels Ison on its multi-million-year trip into the sun. And our planet is right in the firing line.
We don't have too many of these that we see that get that close to the sun. And so it's very intriguing to watch this.
NASA goes to extraordinary lengths to capture images of the interplanetary wanderer, including building a special balloon-mounted telescope for the event. But it is an image from the Hubble Space Telescope that creates shockwaves on Earth.
When we started looking more closely, it had a shape that didn't make any sense to us. It was almost a triangular shape, something that looked very artificial.
So you see this sort of glowing V-shaped object, and to the untrained eye, it could be a very sci-fi Battlestar Galactica looking event.
Looking at the photograph, it's easy to understand why somebody might think that's an alien spacecraft. It looks like something straight out of Close Encounters.
Well, if you think about it, a comet is actually a perfect sort of one-shot disguise for a spaceship flying past the Earth.
Anticipation builds as it heads towards the sun. But after the early intriguing images, the so-called Comet of the Century fails to re-emerge from behind the star.
Suddenly, it's gone. It's as if this massive thing just vanished.
Desperate for an explanation, NASA searches the comet's projected path with telescopes on land and in space.
We think we've lost it, and then suddenly, boom, there it is.
But the intruder from the outer solar system seems to have suffered during its brush with the sun.
The object passes so close around the back of the sun that it gets intensely heated and completely destroyed. All that is left is dust and gas.
Ison's destruction leaves scientists with very little data about the comet. Mark D'Antonio has been investigating the Hubble images.
So this image is not as it appears, because the Hubble Space Telescope takes images at different points in its orbit around the Earth. As the Hubble Space Telescope comes into view of the comet, it takes one picture for 8 long minutes, and that's one of these streaks right here.
It is the combination of 3 streaks of light into a distinct shape that made Ison look like something more than an ordinary comet. But D'Antonio believes this is one phenomenon that can be explained by image manipulation.
In this particular case, 3 particular images were then combined as one.
3 Hubble images of Ison, taken at 3 different moments, 13 minutes apart, each create a single streak of light. In isolation, each of them is unremarkable, but the combination is out of this world. Although this intruder from the outer solar system was harmless, the ancient fears of powerful destructive forces from beyond the stars will always remain. Still to come, a space rock smashes into our planet, carrying a deadly secret inside.
One could look at it as an invasion.
When a rock from outer space smashes into Earth, scientists face a frightening possibility.
One could look at it as an invasion.
Bacteria being able to survive a ride through space is not as far-fetched as one would think.
Could the interstellar travelers that brought life to our planet also bring us death?
Some people have speculated that many of the diseases that we fight with every day are actually alien diseases.
For decades, scientists have struggled to find the origin of life on Earth. Many speculate that life itself acts like a virus, carried from planet to planet by rocks and comets. But in 1969, a meteorite smashing into Earth's atmosphere above South Australia forces NASA to face a grimmer question. When Professor Richard Hoover cracks open a sample, he sees the traces of death.
I broke it, fractured it with sterile tools, and put it on a scanning electron microscope stub and put it in the microscope. And all of a sudden, I saw a filament embedded in the rock matrix. You could see the imprint where the cells had attached to each other. So that made it possible for me to do a very precise identification.
Inside what should be a sterile space rock, Hoover finds what he recognizes as fossilized filaments of a kind of bacteria. While some scientists disagree with his conclusions, there is evidence that suggests potentially deadly organisms living on Earth right now could be descended from these killers.
This idea of bacteria being able to survive a ride through space is not as far-fetched as one would think. This small form of life called Deinococcus radiodurans. Deinococcus radiodurans doesn't have just one set of DNA, but 4 sets of DNA.